What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, where we make your travel dreams a little easier to achieve. I'm Ross, the Itinerary Boss, your guide to all things travel. Today, we're diving into solo travel secrets with my man, Joe Salma. He's had experiences in Bali, Mexico City, Guatemala, and beyond, and wanted to bring him on just to share some of his solo travel secret tips, as well as some of his other adventures that he's been on. I got the chance to meet Joe a couple years back through a mutual connection, and actually got the pleasure of living with him and have many good memories. Only have gotten to travel on one snowboarding trip with him, but it was a blast, and some of the trips he's been on have been great. So I wanted to bring him on to share some of those experiences. What's going on, Joe?
What's going on, Ross? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So don't want to steal your thunder and sell you short. So would you mind just introducing yourself, your background, as well as just some of the great places you've been traveling?
I've been traveling for probably about 10 years now. I didn't do a lot of travel when I was in college. It was kind of post grad when I was doing a lot of it. I will say I do regret not doing the study abroad situation like you did in in Ireland. That seemed pretty dope. But Yeah, like I did a lot of my initial traveling after college, kind of with friends. I hopped around Europe a little bit, didn't really do anything too crazy. And then eventually I got into more solo travel when I kind of realized that it was much more difficult to try to get people together to try to plan a trip. So I felt like, hey, maybe I'll just try like a solo trip at some point. And once I did that, it really opened my eyes to, you know, just what the possibilities are to be able to kind of go out and do whatever you want, and you don't have to feel like you have any restrictions with waiting on friends or trying to wait for the right time to book something. If you just feel it's the right time and you want to do it, you have that freedom to do that. So like you mentioned before, I've been to Europe. I've been to Southeast Asia. I haven't been to South America yet, but I've been to Central America, most of North America, obviously too. So looking to try to get to every continent, at some point pretty soon. I'm not getting any younger, so I want to try to wrap that up as quickly as I can. I want to knock that off my bucket list. But yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the general gist of it. I don't know if you wanted to,
No,
yeah.
man, no. I think that's a good background. We'll get more into kind of some of your solo trips, but no, it's definitely very easy to plan with a huge group, right? I think that's the easiest part. No, I'm completely joking. Like
Yeah.
trying to gather around 6 to 10 people, working with different people's schedules. But I think there's a lot of just different tips and tricks. And once you travel a lot of people, you kind of learn how to do that. But, traveling by yourself, you're like, cool, I need to book this flight at this time. And it's definitely, as we've gotten older and just planning a trip for two, for Audrey and I is definitely easier than, trying to get 6 different guys together and get to Europe and figure out everyone's schedules. It's definitely doable and, have tips and tricks how to do it, but you hit the nail on the head. Doing it solo, that makes sense. But would love to just understand. I mean, I know you touched on it, why you started traveling a little bit
Mhm.
solo, just the ease of it, but what really got you inspired to start traveling solo, and then what are some of the things that you enjoy most about it?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it really just came down to scheduling because I'd have sometimes, I remember I got laid off a previous job, and it was around, trying to think when that was. That was 2019, I believe. I got laid off like in the fall, and I had severance pay for a few months, right? So I was like, I got all this time. I'm getting paid, so I might as well go do something, right? So that was the time where I had an opportunity to travel with one buddy. We went to Barcelona, we went to France. And after that, it was like my biggest solo travel trip. I went to Bali for like 2.5 weeks. And before that, I had a little bit of like kind of a solo experience, like work. I went to London. We and my buddy went to London earlier in the year to watch a Chelsea game, and I spent like 3 or 4 days by myself. which was kind of an adjustment period. Obviously, like London is kind of a weird spot to be by yourself sometimes, especially like in the winter when it's like cold and rainy and stuff like that. And the hostel I was staying at was it was like 10 people in a room, which was like insane. Like it was you cramped into like the smallest room with like guys and girls. So it was really kind of an interesting experience. But yeah, like when I went to Bali, that was pretty awesome because not only was it my first like real big solo trip, but I also went to like a third world country, right? So when I went there, it was like I was seeing some crazy stuff, like it was just super eye-opening when I went there. But like definitely like a great experience for me because I met people from all over, and it kind of just makes you really step outside of your comfort zone. It's just a good experience just to kind of get different people's opinions and kind of how they look at life a little bit differently. Like even for example, like when I was in Mexico City recently, we were at a hostel and I met one guy from Germany who literally sold his car to go on this trip. So he sold his car so he could go and travel South America, Central America. And then there was another guy there that was actually from Pittsburgh who literally brought a bike in. It was like a motorbike. And I was like, dude, like, why does that have PA plates on it? He was like, oh, I drove it here. I'm like, from like Pittsburgh? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, you drove it from Pittsburgh to Mexico City? He's like, yeah, I did. He's like, I was like, how long did that take? And he was like a few months, like 2 or 3 months or something like that. So obviously, like pretty interesting people that you'd meet, like with just completely different perspectives. Um, and it just kind of really makes you think outside of the box and just kind of think about like how we spend our time in America, just kind of working 9 to 5. We don't really think that like, hey, there's so much more to life than just working. And sometimes it's like traveling and meeting new people and having these experiences, right? So that's the thing that I love the most is I just meet people that just have this same outlook on life essentially. Like they're just kind of like, I want to live it. I'm willing to just kind of throw all this stuff away and just go and try a new experience because like I know at the end of the day, like all this material stuff doesn't mean anything. The things that matter the most are like your friends, experiences, and your family, and those things matter the most. And like you can't buy time.
Yeah.
So those people have the same kind of opinion and kind of the same viewpoint as me. And I think that like doing the solo travel just completely opens up your view on life and just gives you like a total new field of vision with how you interact with people and how you look at your job and your work-life balance and those kinds of things, which I think is really important.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And I mean, just a couple points to touch on the 10-person hostel. That's, when you do it the first time, like when we studied abroad, we stayed in a 6-person hostel with people we knew from Radford, but like we weren't close with. So that was a little bit different, but it was cool. We had a good time. But then, when we went over our second trip, um, I was budgeting for I had 2 guys who are teachers, right? And
Mhm.
we're trying to go over to Europe for 16 days. I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I keep this under 3K for everyone? And we stayed in hostels, which if we had a one night overnight layover like in Amsterdam one night, we actually stayed in a 32-person mixed hostel. That place was
Like
so
one
hot.
room.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
hot. Smell
Uh-huh.
it just like, but then we're like, okay, we did it. I'm never that, but that's a lesson learned, right? Like
Yeah.
I won't do that again. Happy to stay in, 8-person or like we would try to get 6-person, but like you kind of learn through those trials and tribulations. And then the best part is too, like you said, even if you're not traveling solo, like when we were traveling groups, if you stay at a hostel, if you are younger, if you're traveling solo, there's always an area to meet people. And half the time, people are either traveling with either solo, with another person, and they're all kind of open-minded. And that's the beauty of it is when you're on vacation or traveling, like even if it's just me and Audrey, or if it's just me at the bar, like you the first question you ask someone is, where are you from? What are you doing here? Like
Hmm.
in the US, sometimes you're not doing that. And it is cool because it just gives you that, like you said, more of that open mind and a different perspective where you're like, hey, I'm going to talk to this person. I'm not, I feel like you're not like over there, at least we're not on our phones the whole time and we're just kind of in the conversation. And that, like you said, none of that materialistic stuff matters at the end of the day. And it's really just those people experiences, friends, family, and you kind of realize over time as that starts to compound and snowball, like that's what's most important. And then you get the bug and you just, like you said, it's, you got things that you want to go see
Mhm.
and have a good time with.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing is like when you do solo travel, it just kind of pushes you to do things. Like you kind of have to do it. So it's like a sink or swim situation, and most of the time everybody can figure it out. Like it's literally so easy to go up to somebody and be like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, what are you drinking?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm drinking this." I'm like, "Where are you from?" They're like, "Oh, I'm from Germany." "Where are you from?" "I'm from the United States." And then you start talking about it. You're like, "Oh, how long are you here for?" "I'm here for 2 weeks." "How long are you here for?" "I'm here only here for a few days." And then all of a sudden you make a new friend, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, like there's two other people here. One's from like the Netherlands. This other guy's from like Australia. We want to go out later tonight. Do you want to go out, like get a couple drinks?" And I'm like, "Sure." You go out and meet other people. All of a sudden, other people there from other hostels, and all of a sudden you have like a cool little friend group. Everybody's texting on like WhatsApp or whatever it is. And you all of a sudden have like a cool friend group. And sometimes you like don't even want to leave that spot because you meet like such like a good clique of people that you're like, I just want to stay at this hostel. And then you have like
Mhm.
plans to go to this hostel or this part of the city. And like sometimes you just want to like completely change it because you just meet like such a good group of people. But that, like you said, like it's so much easier than people think it is. They think there's such a huge barrier to going out and like talking to new people and making friends like abroad, but it's so easy, especially when you go to like what you were talking about, like hostels. Like hostels is basically like filtering travelers to say like people here are open-minded. Because like let's think about it. Like you're not going to stay in like a hostel if you don't have like kind of a free spirited or like open mind with things, right? So like it attracts the right kind of people that you get along with and like have great experiences with. But it's not for everybody, like you said. Like I was talking, I know you had Melissa on recently, and she said she stayed at a hostel for the first time, and she was like talking about having to fold her clothes and put it on the bunk bed. And I was like, yeah, like you need your own room. And that's what I do. Sometimes when I go, I get my own room, which is totally fine. But when I go down to the common room, like everybody's down there.
Mhm.
Like a spot like a Selena might have like a bar. So you go in the
Yep.
bar and there's like two or three people in there who you like become friends with, or they might even have like a drinking night, or the hostel, like a good hostel will literally take like a host will take you out to like the best clubs in like Barcelona. Like when I stayed in Barcelona, there was a party hostel where they literally take like everybody one night, whoever wants to go to like the best like clubs that nobody knows about. And like I was partying like in a castle in
Yeah.
Barcelona. And I was like, no, and nobody recommended this place to me. And it was like one of the best parties, one of the coolest venues I've ever been to, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah, I mean that's what the locals know, and right, they are usually the ones who are taking the people there who are just kind of open to doing that. But yeah, I mean that's the nice thing is when people think of, I mean you took the words out of my mouth. When people think of hostels, they're like, oh shit, I saw the movie Hostel and I'm scared to stay in one. And it's like, first, no, like, you vet out, there's Hostel World, there's different tools that you can find the right places to stay and are rated. And you can type in what you're looking for. I think that's the nice thing. But
Mhm.
like you said, you can get your own room. Like if you want a two bed and you or just it sleeps two, or even if you're going with like we went with groups of six and we would get the six bedrooms, so each of us had a bed, we were there together. But yeah, like Selena Tulum, when I went down there a couple years back, it was, I mean, it was like a buck 50 or buck 75 for a king suite that opened up to the ocean. Like you just
Mhm.
had to go in a little bit of an off time, and right, like you didn't pay for the super luxurious place to stay, right? You said, okay, I'm going to stay at a place that says it's a hostel, but then it's attached to a day club. It's like you just kind of have to get of the mindset of, oh, I have to stay in the top of the top hotels. They're going to cost an arm and a leg, and like think, hey, what is affordable? And also, I can, stay somewhere by myself or I can stay somewhere with other people and kind of figure it out from there. But I think that's the biggest thing is getting over the hump and thinking you have to stay in, where the White Lotus was and pay an arm and a leg because right, they're going to upcharge you. It's more like finding the right places, what are you looking for? And like you said, people are there who want to meet other people.
Yeah, and I think solo travel's different for everybody. Like some people want to go and just be kind of like secluded and just do their own thing. Totally fine. Like if that's what you want to do, then like I highly recommend that too, because some people just want to do like keep everything to themselves, and that's totally fine. But like if you're going and like you want to like party and you want to meet people, hostels 100% are the best way to go. There's even opportunities where you could even stay in a hotel and you can go to a hostel, like, and just
Mhm.
walk in the door and just hang out. Like they'll
Yeah.
let you do that. So you don't have to necessarily stay at a hostel. You just can like know where the best hostel is. Like you can go on Hostel World and find out, okay, this one has a great atmosphere, like really high rating in atmosphere. And you can walk in one day and be like, hey, I'm not staying here, but like I'm really interested in coming to one of these events. And they're usually like, yeah, no problem. Like we do this on Tuesdays, we do this on Wednesdays, we do this on Thursdays. And you pick what's best for you and you go in and you just introduce yourself and all of a sudden you're part of the group.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's literally so easy, but like I don't think people realize like you can do those things. It's just like that's what these hostels are for. Like they don't care. Like these foreign countries, they want you to go in there because it brings business to them. Because if you go in there and you drink a few beers at their bar before you go out with the team, like their group, like you're spending money with them, so they're
Yeah.
all for it.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, I think it'd be good. I mean, I feel like we've touched on, how it's influenced your perspective, some of your open-mindedness, as well as just some tips on, how do you strike up conversations and meet other people when traveling alone. It'd be good. I know we were talking a little bit about some of your solo travel
Mm.
trips to Bali, Guatemala, and Mexico City. Just understanding and hearing more, like, were there some specific memorable experiences or places that you went that you'd recommend? For other people who are traveling there or even looking to book a solo trip?
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think. I'll start with the good, and maybe I'll mention some of the more interesting things that happened recently. But when I went to Bali, Um, I went to an island called Gili T. It's not technical. So Bali's an island in Indonesia, and like Gili T is like an island that's off. I can't remember if it's off the east or west coast, but it's like most people when they go to Seminyak, and then some people go to Canggu, which is like a suburb of Seminyak, which is the capital where you fly in most of the time. And that's kind of where like it's very influencer-esque. So you see a lot of dudes with drones and a lot of guys like, with like flaily shirts and stuff like that, like spinning around in circles while somebody takes like 1,000 photos of them, and like it's so like that's Canggu, but Canggu is really cool because when I went there, there was you could get like surfing lessons for like super cheap. There's no sharks in the water, so you don't have to worry about any of that if anybody has any concerns with that. The waves are perfect for a beginner, and like they'll just like crack open like coconuts and let you drink it on the beach. And then you can kind of bounce from there to, like I think Ubud, which is like where the monkey forest is, and a lot of people go to, a couple other islands, and some people go to Uluwatu. But getting back to Gili T, it's a separate island. It's like very remote. That's off the side or off the coast a little. You got to take like a 20 to 30 minute ferry, or maybe it might be an hour. I can't remember. It's been a while, but um, we go there. It's like very kind of like it's even more third world country because like those islands got hit by the tsunamis. So like it's like super kind of poor in certain areas, but it's cool. It's kind of like a remote island feel when you're out there. But they have drugs are very illegal over there, but they have something that's kind of legal, which is like mushroom shakes. So I did a mushroom shake and I went with a bunch of people that were from my hostel. It was like a bunch of French people. It was like a German dude who lived in Australia. He was just a super weird dude. And then there was like another dude from New Mexico who obviously was super cool. He was like a UFC fighter, or no, he fought MMA and he trained with John Jones. So that was cool to kind of meet that dude. But we took the shrooms and then we went to the other side of the island and I watched like the craziest sunset I've ever seen. And I was just like, yeah, I was just like in the zone big time. Like one of the coolest experiences. And it was
Was it
just
the
an awesome
sunset or
night.
was it the shake?
It was both, honestly. It felt like Zeus was riding his chariot through the clouds. At least that's what it felt like to me when I was looking at it. Um, but that was awesome. And then I'm trying to think what else might have happened on that trip. Nothing too crazy on that. That was just like eye-opening and like all the people are super nice. Mexico City, I'll get to that one because that one was like a recent one. As you know, I got pickpocketed and I got pickpocketed at the soccer game. So we went to the Mexico City's professional soccer team. They had like a really big game, and it was recommended to me by our hostel host to go. And I thought like, oh, she's coming with us to the hostel. We go, and it's literally just like us 10 Europeans showing up at this like super deep into Mexico City soccer game, the stadium. And we're walking in, and like I walk like maybe like 2 feet through like the gate, and somebody just snatches the phone right out of my pocket. And I felt it immediately. And it was in my front pocket too.
Really?
And I tried to grab, and I turned around, and there was like 10 guys all with like the same type of phone, like looking at it. And I'm like, it's 100% gone.
Yeah.
Um, we went through like 5 security checkpoints where the police patted us down. And then we went up to the very top of the upper deck, and there's literally like a fence from the top upper deck where we were to block them from like getting down to the lower sections. And one section where these guys were just all waving flags the entire game, there was police and riot shield at
Oh
the base.
gosh.
So it was wild. And they ended up winning the game, and like the crowd was just going like berserk, like bananas. Like I've never seen a crowd go that nuts, and it was like a regular season game. But like honestly, if it wasn't for me losing my phone, it would have been way better in my mind.
Yeah.
But
What
that
would
it
you have
was
what would
uh,
you have done, I guess, like if you could have gone back? Was there any steps you could have taken now that you know like that you've been to Mexico City in case someone is going and they're planning on going to a soccer game? Like
you
can you
mean like in
bring it?
terms of like how not to get your phone pickpocketed?
Yeah, pretty much. Or can you bring like a fanny pack? Are there ways? I mean,
Yeah, I would. So I looked these up, and I've always been like in the mind, like no one's going to pickpocket me. It'll never happen. Well, guess what? It will happen if you go in the wrong area. It will happen. So just keep that in mind. But one thing you can have is like these fanny packs or like slim fit fanny packs that you can actually like tie under your shirt. And it's like super kind of slim fitting, and you can put like your stuff in there. So like no one's going to be able to steal that because they're going to have to lift up your shirt, like cut it, take it off.
mhm,
I've heard of people actually having fanny packs stolen. Like they'll just come up and just cut the strap and just pull it.
yeah.
So like if you can get something like that that's like really slim fit, and you like put it underneath your shirt, you're good to go. Some people like think if just because you have it in your pocket too, and you like zip the pocket closed, that it's not going to get stolen. I've literally heard of people like having that stolen, where people come up behind them with razor blades and they cut the bottom of your pocket and just pull it out. So like that does happen, probably way less often than just having it pulled normally. But if you could get something like that, or even a fanny pack, and just make sure you're just aware, like anytime you're in a tight spot where there's a lot of people, that's where you really got to watch it. And I will say, like what they tend to do, because somebody tried to pickpocket my friend in Paris. What they usually do is they'll come up and like they'll distract you by like usually putting like they'll put their arm on your shoulder, or like when I was in Mexico City when it got stolen, I was trying to walk through like a really narrow area, and that one guy came up and pushed like the whole pile of people, so I was getting pushed into the barrier, and I put my hands to brace myself, and that's when someone pulled it. So like
Uh,
they distract you with like other things going on, and then that's when somebody takes it. So if you feel like you're getting pushed in like a group of people, immediately just grab your stuff and just make sure you have it in your pocket, because it's most likely someone's trying to do something. Um,
okay.
so just keep that in mind. And like when I was in Paris, what they did, they came up and they were like, "Oh, Americans," and like the one guy like put his arms on me and my friend's shoulders because we were walking next to each other, and we were like, "Yo, get off of us!" And we tried to push him off our shoulder, and like there was another dude behind us trying to pull the phone.
Yeah.
And that was crazy situation, because when that happened, a bouncer actually saw them trying to do that. He ran out into the street and confronted them, and he punched one of the dudes in the face.
Nice. There you
And
go.
yeah, it was insane. And then we were like, I didn't know what the hell they were saying. It was all in French. But we were with my buddy was talking to a French girl at the time, so she was like, "Just run, like let's just run away." And then he chased them down the street. But she was like, "Yeah, like he literally said to them like, you're trying to steal a phone or whatever," and he punched the dude.
Nice, man.
Um, yeah. So one thing for people to know when you go to Paris, like notorious for having pickpockets as well. So like just be careful when you do that.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like any big tourist city, you gotta watch out. But no, those are Gilly T.
100%.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't been to Mexico City. We had talked about it. I know we had done our remote work trip to Costa Rica and really loved that. And then we were like, what are some other good places to go? And I know Mexico City was potentially up there. I know
Oh,
Belize is another
yeah,
one. There's a couple places we can get to kind of directly
100%.
from Charlotte. But yeah, I mean, Gilly T. I mean, we're going to Bali on the honeymoon next year, so
Hmm.
already pumped for Bali. I think we're gonna try to do Gilly T. So I'm sure we'll find a shake or two, and have ourselves a time on the island, man.
Highly recommend trying that. It's an interesting experience, and like
It would be a
it's
first
fun
time
if you
for
do it.
sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun. There's also an area called Nusa Penida, which is like where like you see everyone take those photos where like you see like this crazy steep staircase and like
Hmm.
the cliffs underneath them. Um, Very serious hike when you go there. Don't like underestimate it. It's like a very serious like it's easy to go down, but it's very difficult to get back up.
Yeah, I doubt
So
we'll be doing all that. I think we're doing a lot of excursions in Thailand. I think Bali will do some, but yeah, we're definitely chilling, enjoying the beach, enjoying some of the day nightclubs, and we're definitely going to
mhm.
Gili Tea. So, and I might have my drone there with me so I can get some content, but I won't be one of those guys doing a thousand spin arounds and having Audrey take pictures of me. I can't do that. I cringe.
You're gonna wear your drapey clothing and just run
Yeah,
out into the water.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll bring my kimono and rock that. No, no shirt under, but yeah, no, it's yeah, we'll definitely enjoy Bali and Gili Tea, and I'm looking forward to that. Um,
Yeah, and by the way, just to touch, I know I touched on the negative, maybe a little too much of the negative on Mexico City, but overall, Mexico City, great city. It is, in my opinion, like it feels like a New York or like a London almost. The food there is incredible. Um, if you say, I would highly recommend that if you do stay there, stay in the Roma Norte area. That is a great area to stay. It's like very kind of high end, very safe area to be. I know Ross, I'm giving you like that list of where I stayed for the hostels. Like none of that. There's not really a lot of hostels in Roma Norte, unfortunately. You kind of have to get your own spot, but I will say like if I could go back, like that's where I would stay because that's where the best restaurants are. There's amazing coffee shops there. It has a lot of like foliage there too. It's like very green, a lot of parks. People are super nice in that area. I mean, and generally in Mexico City, they're nice. But highly recommend going to those spots. And like you can always like travel to like, the more touristy spots and do like the day trips, like in the church and like the square that with like the big flag in the middle. I'm forgetting the name of it now, but those are good spots to go. But highly recommend Roma Norte, great spot. Um, that's like I said, the top spot in my opinion to stay.
cool. Yeah, that is that's good to know. I love that Charlotte has all these direct flights to all these places in
Hmm.
Central and some in South America. So that's kind of the vibe we're going for here over the
Yep.
next couple of years. I think it'd be good too, right? When people are considering a first solo trip, like you've gone through a lot of different tips, but I think if there was
Mhm.
any specifics, that from when you first took your first one now to some lessons learned, like what would you say over the years you've kind of accumulated, and would you give tips for some of those solo travelers?
Um, I would say don't necessarily plan your days out like to the T, but just have like a list of places you want to go and visit. Because a lot of the times you'll go to these hostels and they'll have like self-guided, they'll have like tours that'll take you to all these cool spots. Um, so like you don't even really have to go about it and try to plan it yourself. Like they'll just have it. So like just go there with a list in mind of things you want to do. And like they'll have like, for instance, like if you want to go to the temple on a Tuesday, like they have temple tours on Tuesdays at like, 2 o'clock or something like that. Like you can plan around that. You don't have to do everything yourself or like book it through like a third party. So just go there with a list of like what you want to do and just kind of be open to moving your schedule around because you might meet some people where they're doing something that you wanted to do on a Friday and they're doing it on a Monday and you're like, I really like this group of people. I'd rather do it with them than do it by myself. So just be open to that. And don't necessarily confine yourself to a strict schedule. Obviously, really plan out what hostel, if you do decide to stay in a hostel, If you're looking for like I said, more of a party atmosphere or meeting people, more of a social atmosphere, make sure you vet the hostel well on Hostel World. Look for something that has a really good rating when it comes to, the atmosphere. Sometimes you'll stay at a spot that's really nice, but like the atmosphere rating might be like a 7 or like an 8. You're looking for something that's like 9 or above,
Hmm.
ideally, and that's like what you should be looking for if you're looking for that. And yeah, like I said, and when it comes to like just being prepared for anything, me and you have talked about this 100,000 times, is, take pictures of your passport, have it on your computer, have it backed up. Another thing is I have a burner phone now, so if I ever need it, I can access it. It's not a very good phone, but it does the trick. It connects to Wi-Fi. So if I need to get around or if I need a phone, I'm going to have it on me. So definitely use that. You could always buy like a cheap SIM card when you're somewhere and plug it in the phone. It'll at least allow you to stay in touch with people from back home, in case something like that does happen. And if, like I said, if your wallet gets taken or if you lose your wallet, you want to make sure you have like a copy of your passport and like a driver's license. Just take a photocopy of it. Though it's super helpful to have. And then obviously on top of that, what I was touching on, like with the fanny pack, highly recommend having something like that. And yeah, I mean, other than that, that's generally it. Just like I said, just be prepared to just be open and talk to people if that's what you want to do, and follow those other steps, and you should be good to go.
No, that's great advice. Sounds like I need to walk down to the local Boost Mobile and get myself a burner, one of the beep beeps from back in the day, and,
Exactly. Yeah.
and bring that with me. But no, in all seriousness, I think that differs too, right? From I was planning out and have planned out, right, for the past 9, 10 years, all of our group trips. So when you're bringing together, 5, 6, 10 more people, like you have to have it planned out to the T, because if you show up and you're like, hey, what do you want to do today? Everyone has a different opinion, and then you just set yourself up for failure.
Mhm.
If you plan out, right, hey, this is what we're doing, here's what we have going on, you book everything in advance. One, you get to do a lot of the stuff you want to do, but also a lot of the times people don't really care. They just want to be able to be guided and show up. And when they show up, it's, they're going to have a good time. So I think it's different, but also that's the beauty of solo travel, right? Is you kind of get to be on your own time schedule. And as long as you have the places booked, right, you show up. And this is something that I've done over the years now too, now that we aren't traveling with bigger groups and it's just Audrey and I. It's like, if we're somewhere 3 or 4 days, 2 to 3 days are going to be pretty well planned out. But that fourth day is going to be, or that third day is just going to be more of a relaxing, hey, here's some maybes we might want to do. Let's just walk around, right? When we go to some of these, best restaurants that I've done, very good research on, I'm going to ask the people, hey, here's a couple other places that we might want to go to. What do you recommend? Or is there another local spot, right, that's going to be easier to get into where we might not have to have this huge reservation? That way you get to, indulge in that local cuisine. But yeah, no, those are all great tips for solo travel.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, like you said, don't have it planned to the T. And I bet if you go to Gilly Tea and drink that shake, you're not going to have anything planned. So maybe that's the solution. If people are trying to solo travel, just show up, go to Gilly Tea and be on island time and enjoy yourself for sure.
Oh, you'll be on island time, trust me.
That's great.
Hmm.
I think it'd
It's
be,
sick.
yeah, I think too, you've touched on a good amount of it, but if there's any other like safety tips or tricks, I think that's important because, right, you're talking about hostels, you're talking about, right, how to vet those. But if there's anything, right, other than the phone and the burner phone, safety wise, it'd be good to hear what some of those are.
Yeah, one thing I probably should have done a little bit more, just so I was more aware, is you could always check like a travel advisory through the United States. I think it's like a government site will just kind of tell you like you can look in like travel advisory Mexico City or something like that, or Mexico, and it'll tell you like what level it's at. It'll tell you like what to look for. Like certain countries, have a do not travel to ban at the moment, just for like certain reasons, right? It might be like a legit civil war going on, or it could be something else like political unrest. It's obviously like always good to have a base of that, because I feel like a lot of people just tend to just book things and then they're like, oh, well, I actually didn't hear that, there's a little bit of unrest going on in Guatemala at this time. Like, I think I went to Guatemala like a few months after like there was some stuff going on with the president. But it got itself resolved. But for a little bit, I found out that there was like roadblocks taking place and things like that, like people striking. So like the main road to connect you from Guatemala City Airport to Antigua, which is like pretty much everybody goes, it was like blocked off at times. So some people had to leave at like 2 o'clock in the morning to get to like a 9 o'clock flight because like if they waited any longer, they wouldn't make it. So it's just something to take into account. Like be aware of that ahead of time. Just make sure you have like a good base of what's going on in the country before you travel there. And I think the one thing we talked about is like, you know, when you're like, while it's awesome to meet people at these hostels, it's obviously like important to make sure that you're trusting these people and vetting them a little bit. So, you know, don't go out and just randomly meet someone and just be like, all right, cool, I'll just go get a drink. Like, you know, obviously get to know them a little bit, try to understand like why they're traveling. And then sometimes what I like to do to make sure they're kind of normal is just like follow them on Instagram and just see if they're normal. And most of the time they are. But that's a good way to vet them as well. But, you know, you kind of have to use your, you know, common sense when you're doing that. But that's just one thing to just take into consideration is just like vetting them out, getting to know them a little bit more before you hang out with them. You know, like I said, I met some really awesome people. There's actually one of the guys I met in Mexico City. He's going to Uruguay and Argentina in October, and he actually invited me to go. He's like, "You want to go for like a few weeks? I'm going with a buddy." And I was like, I might not be able to go for work, but just the fact that like I have someone now who's inviting me to go to like South America, who I got along with really well, you know, and he lives in Montreal, like
Yeah.
not even in the he's not even from the United States, right? But like that's the type of things that happen. Like you meet a lot of awesome people. So yeah, as long as you follow those steps and like some of the other things I mentioned, like you're good to go.
Yeah. No, I love the making sure they're normal and checking on Instagram. I think that's, or Facebook or whatever. That way you can vet
Hmm.
them out. And I think that's, you know, if you're at a hostel, right. And even right with, I think, you know, if you're a guy and you're talking to girls, you know, make sure you don't just get, you know, drugged. Oh yeah. Like, oh, these girls
Hmm.
are talking to me, and, you know, you kind of vet that out and, and make sure that you do that due diligence before just thinking, oh, I'm in a different country. I'm a hotshot and they're just talking to me. I think that's also something that, you know, people should take into consideration and look into.
And with girls too, like they have to look out for that as well, right?
Oh,
Like it goes both
100%.
ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, like always keep in mind, like if somebody's like, yeah, like I'm gonna go to, if it's like a local and they're like, yeah, I want to go to my house, it's like deep into like a bad area of the city.
Yeah.
Like highly recommend you not doing that
Yeah.
unless you want to. Like I've had friends who've done stuff like that and it worked out for them, but you know, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Um, but
No,
yeah,
that
just use common sense.
that makes sense. I know you like to travel and mix in like remote work, and we
Hmm.
did that this past year to Costa Rica, and we absolutely loved it. I mean, the Wi-Fi was great, right? We did a ton of research prior. I'm actually going to do a solo episode just walking people through, right, how to do that and why we chose there and like what are some things to do when choosing remote work destinations. I obviously have worked remote almost 10 years now just through my jobs, and, you know, traveled, and just it's made it easy. So it kind of comes second nature. And, you know, when I've gone places, it's been more for work or it's been in the US, but haven't been a ton outside the US besides that Costa Rica trip. So would love just to hear, right, like what are some different tips or tricks, or how do you decide where you're going to choose a remote work destination?
Yeah, I will say I haven't done any remote work like overseas, like when it comes to like Europe or anything, just because of the time difference is so big. I do know people who have done it. It's just a lot of the times you're going to be working at night, which isn't fun. But it is doable if you want to make it happen. Generally, what I've been doing, and I've been noticing a lot of my friends have been doing, I have one buddy who does this a lot. But the one thing that I guess people probably don't realize is that South America and Central America are generally on American time zones, right?
Mhm.
Just because of you know how, you know, obviously geography. But like Brazil, I think actually is a little bit ahead of our time. But yeah, like traveling to those spots is great because you can actually work within like United States time zone and, still live abroad, and you're not even necessarily feeling the effects of like having to work at night when you're overseas or in Europe or wherever it is. Like it's much more doable. And you could do really long trips in South America. Like you could be there for like a month because also it's super cheap. Like usually the weather's really good. And like I said, like the time zone is great and it works like with whatever you're doing in the United States. So honestly, if you want to go and do remote travel, I think right now the best time to go or the best place to be going right now is South America, because I think people are starting to catch on to that too. So there's a
Hmm.
lot more remote travel. I had another buddy who I think was in Peru for like 3 months. Like I felt like he was never going to come back home.
Yeah.
But he loved it down there. He was like paying nothing. I had another friend in Argentina for like a few months. He loved it too. It was like super cheap. People are really, really nice. They went down to the Patagonias. I think they took time off for that, but like I said, like it's all within our time zone, like especially on the East Coast. So if you can do it, I would highly recommend going to South America. I feel like that's the next spot, and it's starting to get popular, but right now is like the best time to go,
Yeah,
in
for
my
sure.
opinion.
No, I agree. And that's why we chose Costa Rica. And I mean, I just love the fact that it was 3 hour direct flight. You were there on the beach, you were there in the mountains, right? We got in Saturday, enjoyed the long weekend, and then, we worked Monday to Thursday and took off Friday through Tuesday and had a 5 day weekend. So you're already there, right? So you're not like, oh, I got to take off all this time. You travel in maybe on a Saturday morning. Usually when flights are cheaper because, people are trying to travel on Thursday, Friday, and then you come home on a weekday. Like that's how I found the best flight deals. And yeah, no, I mean, that's the beauty of Charlotte is we have direct flights to a lot of those places. That right, Costa Rica to both the airports. I just saw Belize does, and there's plenty of other places in Central. Not as many into South America. Hopefully, we can get some because we were looking at pairing up Medellin with our Costa Rica trip, but it was direct flights from Costa Rica, but to get there from Charlotte would have been a lot. And then, of course, can't leave Morty alone for that long. So
No, yeah.
but no, yeah, South America is definitely on the list to do and work remote. And yeah, hopefully next year we're around this time we're shredding down in Chile or Argentina in the Patagonia.
Yeah, I think that's something that blew my mind I probably should have known this a long time ago, but the fact that across on the other side of the equator, our summer's their winter and vice versa, which is interesting.
Yeah,
Snowboarding in July and August is an interesting experience, right? So,
yeah, man, for sure. Well,
yeah.
hey, any other last minute tips, words of wisdom for anyone who's looking to start, traveling, regardless if it's solo or with groups, or if they're just ready to take that leap and start solo traveling?
I would say if you're thinking about doing it and you want to do it, just do it. Don't second guess yourself. Get a plan together. Feel comfortable with it. It's not going to be, it's not going to be perfect, but just do it. Just go out there, put yourself out there, solo travel, meet new people. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. If not, it'll just kind of give you just a different perspective and just really kind of open your mind, like I was touching on before. I think it's something that everybody should try at least once in their life. And if you don't like it, like I mentioned, it's not a big deal. But I think a lot of people realize that it's super beneficial and for a lot of different reasons. So, like I said, if you're thinking about it, just do it. Don't second guess yourself.
Yeah, no, well said. Just do it. Throw on your Nike clothes, get out there and just do it. So,
Exactly.
well, Joe, I appreciate you coming on. This has been really helpful and insightful. Hopefully, people take some value from it. Hopefully, people go out and travel a little bit more. And if you have any feedback, comments, or want to hear anything further, let me know and reach out to Joe. I'll
Mhm.
volunteer him for that because he's the expert when it comes to solo travel. But again, appreciate you coming on, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
If you love this episode, don't forget to follow me on all my socials at Itinerary Boss and check out my website at itineraryboss.com for more travel tips and resources. Also, link all the resources we mentioned in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please rate and review the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever platform you listen on. Your feedback helps us reach more people who are looking to travel more. Tune in to next week's episode. Peace.